chief of police or the mayor? Which one?
The questions about Officer Michael Slager came hard and fast. Eddie Driggers is the chief of the North Charleston Police.
To my knowledge, nobody was witness to anything but Slager.
Slager handcuffed Walter Scott after he shot him, but at least on video did not appear to aid him. Shortly after the shooting, another officer shows up, identified by the police department as Sergeant Habersham. In the incident report, Habersham declared, "I attempted to render aid to the victim by applying pressure to the gunshot wounds," but no mention of CPR or chest compressions. Ultimately, several police officers are seen on video at the site. One of them says in his statement Habersham did perform CPR, despite Habersham not mentioning it. Sergeant Gann says he helped Habersham, stating, "I exited my vehicle and assisted Officer Habersham with first aid and CPR. We continued to perform first aid and CPR until EMS arrived on the scene." Still another officer, identified as Sergeant Webb, declared, "I observed Private First Class Habersham administering chest compression to the defendant." So after the handcuffs were put on, which the mayor says is standard policy across the country, the question remains.
Was CPR ever performed on this man, as far as you know?
I'm gonna be totally honest with you.
Do that.
I am. And give me just a second. The honesty comes from my heart. I have watched the video, and I was sickened by what I saw.
Part of what the chief saw was no CPR.
In the end of it, what I saw was I believe to be a police officer removing the shirt of the individual and performing some type of life-saving. But I'm not sure what took place there.
But you don't know if CPR was performed.
Oh, I do not know. I was told that life-saving, that they tried to save his life.
The investigation has been handed off to the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, known as SLED. But without elaborating, the North Charleston Police Department does say there may be more video to examine. So did any of those other officers give inaccurate statements about the aftermath of the shooting? Amid the sadness and tragedy, that's a possibility that will most certainly be examined by the state agency now conducting the investigation. At the end of the news conference, the North Charleston mayor was asked one more question about CPR.
Not every officer is CPR certified.
And with that, the mayor and police chief left the podium. So many questions still unanswered.
And Garrett Tuckman joins me now. I mean, it is remarkable when you look at that video, you know, the man is shot, light seems not to be moving. The officer handcuffs him and then doesn't check vital signs, doesn't do anything to aid him. He walks off to retrieve whatever it is he goes back to retrieve. What else stood out to you from this report?
I think what's interesting is there are 8 officers who put statements in this incident report. And while it's not surprising, what's very notable is none of the 8 throw Officer Slager off the bus. They basically say nothing negative about him at all. If Slager mentioned to him why he shot the man or that he didn't perform first aid, it's not mentioned at all. So while their statements are very businesslike, there's nothing negative about Slager, nothing negative about any of the officers who were near the scene, and nothing extraordinarily negative about the situation overall.
The other question then, of course, that raises is, was there some sort of collusion of accounts? You know, because you have multiple officers saying, oh yeah, I saw the other officer administer CPR, I helped the officer. I mean, if they're in that video, at least, we don't see any CPR.
Well, 2 of the officers said the first officer on the scene after the shooting performed CPR. But that officer doesn't say he performed CPR. And you saw what the police chief said.
Right.
We do not know if there was any CPR or any chest compressions.
Well.